Welcome back to the Beyond All Reason 1v1 Tournament Grand Finals. These two players have battled their way through the best of the best, not the favorites, at least not on the leaderboards going in. Even trying for some extra intel early, which is a big part of strategy games. Teddy here as the Cortex commander responding, the map we're currently playing on, the one that we were obligated to start the match with, is my worst map. They all get better from here, which is a great response from the Thai player. The Cortex commander in the blue, smartly done, strategically, as he kicks things off on Comet Catcher, the remake for Beyond All Reason, and his counterpart, also playing Cortex. On the other side of this near windless map is MightySheep as well. It's going to be a best of 5. So plenty of strategies we've already seen from these two throughout. But like, subscribe, ring the bell. Did you know this new game Beyond All... Okay, it's not new. It's been around for a while, but I think finally people discovering the modern spiritual successor to Total Annihilation. No, it's not Supreme Commander. No, it's not Total Annihilation. It's legally distinct, and arguably even better. And, well, I'll introduce you to some of the basics. But first, remember to check that description. And you can, with my promo code, I'll allow you to download the game, the first 100 people, for absolutely free if you just follow the link. Everyone after that will also be able to download it for absolutely free, but they won't be as special. So make sure to be first. So, Beyond All Reason, all you have to do is kill your opponent's commander. Simple enough. It's a hunter-gatherer. Everybody loves survival games, like Minecraft. So really, Beyond All Reason ends up being a hunter-gatherer game. You gather metal, energy, metal from metal extractors, energy from solar collectors or wind turbines, or later on things like fusion reactors. Hunter in that you destroy opponents' units or buildings, and you can reclaim or even resurrect them and have them join your army. Either they're metal, so it does give you a reason to fight and gain control of the map, because when units are destroyed, they leave a wreck or debris that can be collected and added to your army in one way or another. So, both players have chosen Cortex as their faction, which, to my understanding and my experience, on maps, especially maps that are so focused around open field land battles like this one, the micro-ability of the grunts, the tier 1 infantry unit, is just... it's essentially think of phoenixes versus mutas in StarCraft 2, the small indie RTS. Grunts have more range than pawns, and are cheaper. So a top-tier player is very unlikely to lose any meaningful fights, or even... essentially, the pawns can never catch them. The grunts are just too quick. They are actually the same speed as pawns, and they have the range, so... But, starting things off, the early game builds really are an important part, both stylistically and how they affect the rest. The last resource I kind of neglected to mention is build power. The ability to use your resources and put them into units, buildings, defenses, what have you. The commander, for example, has 300 build power. Construction bots have just 80. Of course, the commander is the most important and powerful and handsome unit in your army. So, but where you use that build power and how you get it to that point is a big part of especially the early game, but actually the entire game. Even though it isn't particularly... it takes a lot of experience to kind of get a feel for when and where to add more build power, when to use your resources to add more constructors, stuff like that. Now, both sides, unlike many of you may have played team games, this is nothing like it. You got the whole map here, so you're probably not going to be hurting for areas to add metal extractors. What you're going to be hurting for is the ability to defend them. Because a turret, a light laser turret, or even some of the more advanced ones, doesn't do that much in the face of half a dozen grunts who are easily able to close the distance and outflank it. Flanking damage as well is another big reason of why the bot lab is often the choice. Just a quick and very bare bones rundown of how that works. And it's pretty simplistic. Here you got your unit. It gets attacked from this side. So that's the main attack. It gets attacked from here. That's up to 2 times as much damage. So, being at past that 180-degree angle. And depending on how much of a flank it is, it adds more damage. And that is the reason why getting a bunch of units early is usually better than getting a few very strong ones. So far, the typical in actually very high APM exchanges, as both sides try to partition out grunts to limit the economy of their opponent. This is the starting map, the most iconic, probably the most played, and also the hardest to defend a meaningful amount of your territory, as there's very little besides a few craters to stop them from just running by into what should be, quote-unquote, your side of the map. Of course, whoever claims it. We've seen several games so far in the tournament where your side of the map is a very flexible idea. Because at the end of the day, all you have to do is kill the commander, which can be done with just a handful of grunts if you set it up correctly. Though, isn't particularly likely to happen here. So Teddy adding on the vehicle plant. Tier 2 tech is not just a small progression. It costs 2,900 metal. For reference, the tier 1 factories cost about 600, 700 or so. So, going up to tier 2 factory with that huge amount of metal, notice we're sitting at 25 to 35 per second, leaves you wide open. It's essentially like building 3 more command centers and 4 more barracks in StarCraft 2. So, it is a huge investment that will leave you open, especially in what is effectively a mirror matchup, to potentially game-ending attack. But once you do get Tier 2 tech, you have access to the Tier 2 constructor for the very advanced metal extractors, which have 4 times as much income, as well as much more powerful units. But of course, once again, nothing's free. So, while there's been constant exchanges and battles, so far, MightySheep has taken a bit of the better end of things. A bit more damage efficiency, as well as metal production, though Teddy has managed to get a bit more energy. So, energy very constant on this map is nobody using wind, just the solar panels, which generate 20 apiece. Also can be reclaimed. You can reclaim the wrecks on the ground, of which, how much is on the ground right now? 700 or so. Smaller units, obviously, not as valuable. You get about, like, very roughly 50% of the unit cost in the wreckage. Usually a bit more. I think it depends on how much damage it took before it died. But both sides. So, what I was getting around to was, instead of Tier 2 tech, you usually kind of side grade. You go from the bots to the tanks, which can get outflanked by bots if they're on their own, but are also more powerful when combined individually. You got your infantry support there, and that's what Teddy is using to carve out a lot of space in the middle of the map. He's wiped out most of the units on the front line, which is a very flexible idea, and used that to grab a whole lot of his side of the map, and is now using the grave robbers here, aptly named the Resbots, in order to resurrect some of the units that are left as wreckage. You can use your energy. It doesn't cost any metal. So when you kill a unit and you resurrect it, you've essentially taken their metal and turned it into yours for free, as it only costs that energy, which the economy and beyond all reason seems simple at first. It gets even more complicated as time goes on. And then it's simple again, and then you realize, oh wait, it is very complicated. You get used to it, I think. I don't know, I'm not there yet. But that is an example of build power, even if it's deconstructing and reconstructing. You can see the little halos on the units are units that were resurrected. You can also resurrect your own units from debris. Ooh, armed metal extractors. Why build turrets when they can become the turrets? Of course, that's not going to stop a concerted tank push here, but it's going to slow it down, certainly. And that is the first step. Now, another push to the top left. A couple grunts are slowing things down for Teddy. But overall, Teddy has managed to carve out a big chunk of map control. And is still clearly the aggressor on many fronts. I don't think nearly as much in the way of armed metal extractors for Teddy, though, as they've been reinforced. I don't know if they started. Did he just build 2? He just built it like a turret. I don't know if that was intentional. You can only use 1 metal extractor. It doesn't have to be on the point. I see a lot of new players wondering why. As long as it's close enough. But you can only mine from 1 metal point with 1 metal extractor. So, though I guess technically you could build 2 armed extractors right next to a point, even if one of them only will mine. So that is kind of an interesting quirk. Well, the barren wasteland of Comet Catcher continues to claim more and more as the economies grow. Until any of the economy is... Oh, what? Whoa, 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 whoa! Okay. Yeah, the commander with the D gun. I thought for a second the commander might get sniped, but of course not. It does appear they've kind of stalled out, as Teddy has marginally more energy production, while also more metal as well. So Teddy's doing quite well for himself, but a solid push coming together from MightySheep. They're both concentrating on those medium tanks, essentially the heaviest tank you can put on the field in Tier 1. Which are the brutes here. And meeting along the center line yet again. The grunts add a lot of extra damage and flanking potential. I think is the most important factor here. As we see them closing in, Teddy kind of looking for a kill on the main army. He's had a slight unit advantage for much of this time. Want to be careful not to go into the concave of your opponent. Some of the tanks being resurrected as well. You got to be careful of how much you end up losing on your opponent's side of the map, because if you don't win the battle, they can turn your own units against you. The wreckage is starting to pile up. Both players struggling to keep enough alive to actually move forward. And some shurikens being added. Oh my god, the traffic jam. The shurikens can stun some of the tanks. It looks like they're almost getting corralled here. But I think Teddy has been able to punch through. It's definitely getting jammed up, which is a technical term. But Teddy seems to be making... It's getting very confusing. The shurikens are definitely... they force a response, but already an aircraft plant made by MightySheep. The aircraft plant is not particularly cheap, the most expensive Tier 1 production, at least aside from some of the naval stuff. But both sides starting to bank a lot of metal right now. They have too much money. They actually don't have the build power to spend it. The commander's getting involved in the production, trying to sink... Wait, where is... MightySheep's commander is on the other side of the map. But he does have some construction turrets. I'm not sure how they compare. armed metal extractors. Fighters dealing with the shurikens. Now because he had air control, MightySheep was able to add some shurikens of his own. And now he's turned the tide. There aren't enough res bots on the field to deal with all this wreckage right now. And of course, every unit you make that doesn't actively fight your opponent might end up losing you the battle. But here comes Teddy. He's regrouped. There's only a handful of tanks left, trying to bring some more back onto the field. The shurikens may help to stall this out. The grunts getting into the midst of things. The wreckage is making things difficult. The shurikens more so. More brute tanks. Continued fighting. And there's no, like, remember, in order to win, you have to kill the commander, and neither commander is anywhere nearby right now. But it just keeps escalating. There's so many shurikens. At some point, might want to consider adding in some anti-air, but fighters are coming in. Fighters, the shurikens don't have anti-air capability, so they're easy pickings. As here come the fighters of Teddy. The ground army is working its way forward. And if he can get to the production and the economy here, well, obviously that makes all the difference. He's had some res bots resing units, or he's just reclaiming, which gives him metal and denies it to his opponent. Reclaiming is much faster than resurrecting, but of course that unit is gone once the metal is sucked out of it. So Teddy maintains a income lead and map control, barring a snipe on the commander. So the solar panels are a lot tankier than wind turbines, so they can actually be used as some sort of a blade of armor here. Essentially, you have to go through them in order to get to a lot of the production. Though, I think Teddy is happy to do so. Can't macro on this map, says MightySheep. Which is certainly a statement. No windmills. Ah, yes. Teddy agrees. And the battle concludes as I believe he self-destructed or just left or resigned. Much like StarCraft, the top players know when they're beat and won't sit in a corner waiting for them to come try to find you and kill you. Teddy takes game one with the concerted push, combined arms, using every one of those early production facilities, just securing a bit of an advantage and carrying it through. But that means it is MightySheep's map pick. And unlike StarCraft 2, where we essentially have 3 reskins of the same map like they're Marvel movies, maps really do make a difference here in Beyond All Reason. From the depths of the seas to essentially islands that force you into the sky. Well, one of those is what we're about to see. The Shallow Straits is the pick for MightySheep. Teddy actually had to play this map against Randy in the semifinals, so may have some experience with it. But important to note as we go in, there is an entire tech tree for naval combat. Now, only because I've seen a single game on this map do I have any idea what we might see. There are amphibious units, some of which have the ability to attack underwater, some of which just walk through it and can't attack until they're back on land. Of course, there are boats and submarines and aircraft, oh my. And important to note, the commander can also walk underwater. For better or worse. Do we have... So it's Cortex versus Cortex. Yes, Teddy lost to ducks. No, not the arguably annoying bird, but instead the even more annoying amphibious torpedo launcher / laser platform. So, of course, that was quite a while into the game. Some of the metal extractors are in the water as well, which can be claimed by the commander or a variety of different constructors. But overall, the battle is still fought mostly over the land. Randy taught me, says Teddy. And that's in team chat, so that's intended for spectators and casters here. So, don't worry, I got you, Teddy. I know how to fill time. Thank you for the help, though. Will Teddy be able to capitalize on the knowledge bestowed upon him by Randy? And I think he's got to be pretty happy that this was the map pick. Wait, no, Sheep was watching the other game. There's no way he wasn't. It's not like he doesn't know. But I'm not, we're not, these aren't hidden straight. It was the other semi, they know that happened. I'm pretty sure he was spectating the game, so. I'm out here like, oh, the hidden strats from the other semi-final. Well, I mean, anything involving a significant amount of water in erection does open up quite literally another dimension of strategies, an amphibious dimension. I'm interested to see how quickly we embrace that. Ooh. It's gonna be vehicles first. Teddy makes his way up, pumping those robo arms. Gonna try to claim the center island. Meanwhile, MightySheep is just pumping out constructors. The vehicle constructors are quicker. They have more built. Teddy, taking a page directly out of Randy's book, gets a Garpike to kick things off. Trying to sneak underneath the water and gut the production. This could all end very abruptly. So, the first thing people ask is like, what if one commander D-guns and they both die? Well, whoever fired the D-gun loses. To prevent the most silly and obvious of potential losses from happening. So, my favorite of the matches are when I do like the combined arms stuff. It is interesting, but I do think because the factions, well, one, a lot of the matches are Cortex versus Cortex, but also because even when the factions are different, the units are very similar, kind of like a mirror matchup. The difference is the maps. And I do think that's something that StarCraft 2 got quite, I think partially because StarCraft 2, the units are so good at killing each other and how the game is designed, which isn't a bad thing, obviously. But the variety here is not so much the units themselves, but the maps. And how the units and the armies interact, which creates this sort of split in strategies here. I don't think you can as easily have an ideal strategy like you did on Comet Catcher here on Shallow Straits, because very simply, if one player goes for the amphibious strat, they're vulnerable to a whole set of things, but there's no easy way to punish them directly because of all this water. Of course, if Teddy just doesn't build any other units, it could be very bad. I will acknowledge that, as then he would die and lose the game. But he has pumped out a few thugs here. Oh my. MightySheep much like his British counterpart, knows all about invading via the water. Randy also did this against Teddy, which is just walking up and murdering everything with the commander, understanding that there's nothing here to stop him. He's just gonna kill, like, there's no units, he reclaimed it. Now he's on the other side and he's just de-gunning. Oh no! Teddy! I mean, what's the plan, Teddy? He can't believe this is happening to him again. Also, the Garpike is kind of abandoned. What's that? They're gonna have a proxy war with the turrets, is really the only... What am I watching? Where are you going? It's like a dream sequence here. It's like when you're running away in a dream, but you can only move at like... Well, like this. And also, you're a 20-meter tall super mech with a massive gun that can one-shot everything, which is what my dreams are like. I don't know about you guys, but... So this is pretty real. This is pretty direct parallel. Oh yeah, this is very... It feels like Teddy completely forgot about the Garpikes. Which, at this point, I don't know how much they would do. Sheep is making a clean getaway. Wait, did he capture the radar? Well, looks like Randy taught him how to lose on this map. Yeah, there's nothing left. He has no production. He's lost most of the map. Oh, he's got the sonar. Oh, he remembered the guy. He types GG. Now, this is considered, in many circles, quite a dick move to type GG. The sheep's like, GG? Question mark? It's like, but wait, I found my Garpike. Actually, no. 3 hours later. Yeah, unfortunately, it's coming up. Well, I think... Well, it's not the easiest. I'm not sure if this is going to make the difference, but... Well... He's gonna... Did he just capture the sonar? He did. Alright. Remember, once again, the way to win the game... Is that a torpedo launcher? Once again, Teddy may end up... So very technically, also, I'm just, like... I feel like Teddy has already typed GG. It is... Anyways, is he gonna die in the water once again because of his ill-conceived strategies? Well, up here... Yeah, Teddy is clear. This wasn't... Teddy! Teddy. Do it. He wants him to D-gun. Oh, group hug. Wait, is he capturing the commander? Wait. What am I watching? This is... Oh my god, it's like a middle school dance. Alright. Neither of them know what they want to do, or how to have basic human interaction. But here we are. Alright, well. Does he have enough for a D-gun? Do it! Oh my god, he missed. Well. 1-1. That. I don't think it was that, BM. There's definitely a more... All the top players know each other because you literally can't rank up without playing them. Because you have to agree to enter a lobby and fight them. There is no direct matchmaking, at least at the moment. So... At the same time, though... I will put a bit of a glare and a disappointed eye on the GG into, oh wait, I have this unit. And then Sheep like, wait a second, sir. Immediately fortifying all the angles. I didn't actually check. I believe the next map also has water, but not exactly. It is now Teddy's pick. Jumping in. Where the hell are we? The cold place. Okay. Yep. Yeah, it looks pretty cold. How good are the winds? 20. Very good. It said very strong winds. Anyways, my map. And it was remade for Beyond All Reason. I do love the... much like my heart. Cold and... icy. And despising of water, yet filled with it. Where is my chill music? There's too much peace music, despite the fact I'm looking for it right now. Oh, here we are. Where were we? Well, as the commanders wage war, we wait for them to develop their economies. We wait for the armies to be built, the aircraft to knock each other out of the sky, crashing to the ground, destroying anything below. Potentially nuclear missiles to be built with self-destruct bots as well. Actually, I didn't check. Are they both Cortex? Yes. Okay. But this serene, untouched wilderness, by the end, will be a place of death, destruction, glory, and horror. Who will prevail? And will it be a victory, but instead a less total defeat? We find out here in the grand finals of Beyond All Reason. Tied 1-1 in this tournament. Let it begin. Well, okay, so tidal is 25. The wind is so amazing. So energy, without getting into the spreadsheet again, essentially wind energy is by far the most efficient in most cases. Tidal energy, which can be harnessed via tidal generators, can in many cases, especially on maps that are more water-focused, be very efficient, but not as efficient as wind turbines. Of course, wind turbines are very easy to snipe off, fragile, but they're also very quick to build, so they are the priority. And as you saw in game 1, when the players mentioned you can't macro because you can't build wind turbines, which is not exactly, I don't think that was literal, but it is certainly much easier to scale your economy with wind as opposed to by investing so much metal in solar. Quite a... Wait, how much is the metal? 2.4s across, so on the higher side. Some 1.7 scattered in. A little bit juicier, those metal extractors. Also, I don't know... Oh, wait. Is there a geothermal over here? Am I missing something, or... Why are there two geothermals where MightySheep spawned? Did you just pick the right side of the map? Wait, is this like a more valiant? No. Feels like he has access potentially. They can climb the mountains. The bots. Part of the advantage of going bots is those legs, which are better at climbing things than, you know, wheels or treads, because they're legs. And that does open up some extra opportunities for attack and defense. Small counter. A lot of grunts sent out by MightySheep here, which may leave him a slightly more vulnerable to the top. I'm interested to see. It looks like Teddy thinking about the water, though he might just be reliving some of that. Oh, I'm dumb. I was wondering, I'm like, that feels like Teddy should have some geothermal. It'd be kind of silly. Anyways, it's right there. He built it right off the bat. It was just a relatively different starting position, so... Whereas MightySheep has two geothermals he might have access to, Teddy has one in his base right now, so... Overall, it looks like Sheep, while not having that extra energy, he's sunk many of the resources into the production of units. And while Teddy might be able to deal with the counterattack to the south here, also, did Sheep see the air plants? He did not. So he doesn't know about, right now, the bombers that are being set up. I'm not going to risk the FPS cam, but... Yeah. Going straight across the cold waters could come as a very, very unhappy surprise. The shurikens will be unleashed as well. Just a handful, but that could definitely swing some of the smaller battles. Oh, Teddy doesn't have nearly enough grunts here, and adding in some vehicles as Sheep. Using up the incisors, the light tanks, but the shurikens stunning most of the line, allowing some free shots. Hard to miss. Well, with grunts in general, and specifically if things aren't moving. Looks like Sheep. Oh, wait. He salvaged his bot lab to add the air plant. A bold move, but paying off now as he switches into the more maneuverable ground and air units. Oh, the bombers. The fighters are stuck at the front. He successfully masked the bombers. Not a particularly ambitious bombing run to kick things off, but going for the metal extractors that he very likely couldn't hit otherwise. Ooh. Misses one. At least doesn't finish it off. Looking for another run here. The fighters, though. Gets enough, only takes a couple bombs. Those fighters do a great job of knocking them down. Might be able to unleash another couple. Yep. And crashes into the cold lake. Meanwhile, grunts on the left side, clearing up some of Sheep's metal extractors. But at the same time, the tanks will be stunned by the shurikens. The grunts should be able to clean them up. Some of the grunts making their way over the mountains as well. What are these? Goons! The Goon Squad rallied across the map. Those hovercrafts. We've almost now completed hovercraft directly across. They were obviously a threat. But not sure. Throw some out there. Of course, this is 1v1, so not talking to his teammates. Some of the ground shut down. The goons are quite costly. All the hovercraft are pretty costly for what they actually do. But obviously have some distinct advantages. Shuriken stunning some of the grunts that are trying to work their way up from the mountains. Or down, I guess. More accurately. Let's see, the sheep view. He sees the dots, but the radar didn't actually cover the lake, it looks like. So the goons are gonna show up mostly unannounced. Though the Shuriken should be able to respond, and a few tanks are enough to slow this down dramatically. The goon squad, only a single one making it. The rest getting stalled out by Shurikens or cut to pieces by the tanks. Still one grunt, being incredibly annoying. The energy income now goes to MightySheep. The geothermal is still intact. They both have a very solid amount of energy, I think, for this stage. Having no geothermals, just a whole lot of wind turbines for MightySheep. Still investing in the goons here. No anti-air from Teddy, as he's entirely focused on the goon squad. Oh, some fighters, but holding him back for now, it looks like. Teddy overall has a lot of units. I think map control. There are no metal extractors. What do we have here? What is this? A garpike. So, in the eternally awkward bit of this, the hovercraft nor the garpike can shoot one another while the garpike is underwater. So, while they can see it, the hovercraft are above the water. It's in the name. So, the garpike tanks... Teddy will be waiting, but he can't actually really do anything about this. The fighters are hovering over. More shurikens. I have no idea how this plays out. Obviously, he's trying to... I don't know if there are any hovercraft. Bird eaters here. Some anti-air hovercraft. Looking to at least even the odds in the skies. And now... Well, this is kind of a crazy-looking map right now. As the ground attack, complemented by shurikens for MightySheep to the south, is matched by just an overwhelming number of grunts to the north. MightySheep's commander is in the bottom left, and that's becoming somewhat relevant with all these grunts swinging in. The goons will slide up onto the high ground and look to engage head-on. Not their strength, but he's putting whatever he can together. Pounder riot tanks designed to deal with masses of units. Just blasting them away. I'm not sure if they slide more on the ice or if that's just it happened to hit it the right way, but the Pounder's easily dispatching, so he stops that grunt wave in its tracks. The Pounder's not particularly quick, but on defense in that scenario, the right choice. Meanwhile, Teddy is forced to bring the commander into action. The Garpike's helping out. The incisor tanks on top of most of the wind turbines, and if he gets a hold of that geothermal, I don't know if he's going to get that far. But Teddy obviously in trouble here. The hovercraft, not enough, taking a lot of damage. The commander fires off the D-gun, 30%, still intact. But Teddy is now down almost 1,000 energy as he loses a whole lot of his wind turbines. He keeps the geothermal. And by the way, he has a tier 2 bot lab. How about on the other side? No tier 2, so that is something. Tier 2 is done, though it's going to be quite a bit before he can bring it to bear. I guess he could build some ducks. Fiends for now. Tier 2 constructor as well. It does look like Teddy's going to try to play it out here. Which he does have the tech. Though MightySheep, and MightySheep's commander is in kind of an awkward spot. This grunt is perpetually stunned by a single shuriken. The bird eaters make their way up to the high ground on the mountains, still battling in the center of the map. Some bombers attempt it, but the fighters will intercept. Teddy finds them and drives many of the bombers back and shoots some of them down. So pretty big catch there. Able to get the bombers before they potentially finish them off. The pounders are slowly, oh so slowly, their biggest weakness, but surely making their way around the top right of the lake. And it's, eventually we will get you, but here come the fiends as well. Some of the hovercraft getting intercepted. Fighters. He wants the shurikens to be a part of this. And here come the bombers as well for MightySheep. Bringing everything together. There's not that much to match it. The bombers aiming for the economy. Very little anti-air. On top of the wind turbine, straight for the geothermals? No, actually just get some of the energy converters. Oh wait, there's more. Lines up a run. More of the wind turbines down. Teddy with next to no anti-air here. The bombers have free reign. A single anti-air bot. Going for the production, just hitting whatever he can. Meanwhile, the pounders are punching their way through, but MightySheep, actually his commander, was a little out of position. Though is able to cloak. It costs a ton of energy, but he does have enough to support it. Where is Teddy's commander? On its way back. Oh no, the geothermal. The geothermal. Oh, it's still intact. And here come the hovercraft, but one more bombing run could do it. Are they on target? Not quite. 3%. If that thing explodes, it's not the tier 2, but it will still do a whole lot of damage. Looks like Sheep almost got caught out by grunts, but is able to cloak away. The pounders trying to be aim and hover tank. Quite costly, but oh my. Running right into the powder. You gotta be very careful. The geothermal. Oh, that thing is. Whoa! Whoa! What was that? Was that a fiend? I don't know what just detonated, but something self-detonated there and took out most of the pounder tanks, which will take some of the pressure off and allow Teddy to potentially turn the tides. Though, it's still there's a tier 2 bot lab now for MightySheep. It's becoming more and more difficult. The fighter control is there. I think there's some anti-air. Like, units will shoot up, but they're not quite... Unless they're dedicated to anti-air, they're not very good at it. Grunts getting resurrected and turned against their previous... Honestly, who knows who owned the grunt in the first place? Some of these grunts have changed hands half a dozen times. Between all the res bots. Even the res bots might have changed hands, right? Meanwhile, the Trasher bot only has an anti-air cannon. So this grunt will eventually deal with it. Fiend is out. Here comes Teddy. But the fiends will just melt the attack in its tracks. Far more than enough. And the lake has claimed dozens of aircraft. It's claimed hovercraft. It's claimed the respect, the oil, the tears. Not blood. I don't think there's any blood. But metaphorically. But at the end of the day, it does seem like MightySheep has claimed most of this abandoned land. And soon will claim victory and put himself on match point in the Beyond All Reason 1v1 tournament finals. So Teddy ain't giving it up yet. I think I'm confident enough as a caster to preemptively call GG, much like Teddy on Shallow Straits. Teddy is opting for a tier 2 geothermal, which is a massive investment, a massive danger, and possibly the only thing that could turn this around. Ducks. The ducks are back to plague Teddy once more. They may be his undoing yet again. Teddy now has the tier 2 geo, but can he translate it into enough units? I'm hard pressed to see it. The flamers from the north. The ducks from the lake. Grunts from the south. Aircraft above. Shurikens as well. Bots on the back. Teddy is looking quite surrounded. Here come the flamers. And with that geo going down, oh no, it's gonna be bad. Oh, wipes out the base. Teddy actually survives it, but then detonates. And MightySheep will claim a second game. Despite Teddy's map pick, MightySheep more than capable. And that brings us to game 4. We'll have to see. Crystallized Plains is the choice. A pretty pedestrian one, quite literally, in what we've seen so far. But it looks like Teddy wants to get back to basics. As we load in. And by pedestrian, I mean there's no water. There's no weird terrain features. Just sheep, Teddy, few small mountains that block radar, beautiful clouds, lush rivers. I just want to nuke the crap out of it. Also, I just realized now their ranks are actually changing with these matches, because technically, well, they're evenly matched at this point. Skill rank 44. Of course, also winning the tournament is quite a representation of skill. And so far, MightySheep, despite changing the color here, though I'm not entirely sure how, if they have control over that, is up 2-1. Pretty simple map. Each of the metal extractors, I believe, is at 2? Just straight up 2? 2.3. Alright, so quite strong. Not overwhelming. I believe they're all 2.3. All in pairs here as well. Sending out those constructors. Commander staying at home, lending his build power. It is a wind map for lack of better options. I don't believe there's any geothermal. Actually, there is. Centralized locations. And not so centralized, actually. On the backside. Neither player willing to commit a huge amount of units early. A single grunt from Teddy. Taking a look around. Like he was never there. Cleaned up. Teddy is actually moving out with his commander. So, not a risky move so much as part of the build order. Some players will just keep it at home and lend that build power to essentially the main base. Sheep seems to prefer doing that most of the time, whereas Teddy put himself out there in lieu of some extra constructors. I'm not sure there's a particular right or wrong to it, more of a stylistic choice. Of course, the commander can build quicker than anyone, so that has many applications. I'm not actually sure what determines this victory. I believe the first laser did slightly less damage for MightySheep there. So, allowed it to turn the tides. Because there is a damage drop-off for laser weapons. Because they always hit, just the longer the range, the less lasery they are. That's technical term. So far, Sheep, he has his lines of wind turbines set up to prevent those chain reactions. And also, well, on the other side, instead of the commander, a construction turret for Teddy. So a bit of an investment, but overall, the construction turrets are inevitable. They have 200 build power. And of course, they can repair. They are your stand-in, quite literally. Ah, yes, great designs, showing us the center of the map. Now, 3 grunts have slipped behind for MightySheep. Which might be enough. Well, did he build a turret? But the grunt is actually behind here. Nicely positioned. Ends up using the fight command, which keeps them at range, like a tech move in SC2. The turret is a little too close, but Daddy's out in the middle of the map right now. Let's go to the sheep camp. In behind, working on those mexes. So far, it appears most of his build has gone off. Essentially, mostly untouched. There's been a few attempts to run by, but almost entirely blocked by MightySheep here, who's relying more on the construction bots rather than the turrets themselves in order to produce. Adding a few more turrets on the corners. And it's time, the construction turret and then the vehicle plant being added on now that he has some sort of stable economy. Also controlling those mexes in the corner just by having a single grunt there. Able to see exactly how much it's taking. I don't think 1 or 2 mexes is going to decide the game, but if it only costs 1 grunt and you can keep them busy, I mean, there's value right there. All right, to the Teddy cam, looking on close and in. Teddy realizing, oh my, that's actually a lot of grunts punching right through. The commander is in a bit of a vulnerable position, though unlikely with access to the disintegration gun to go down to the first group of grunts. It has happened before, but unlikely to happen here. I'm not sure if Sheep knows exactly what the commander is, but probably isn't gonna go risking it just to try to snipe at this stage. If the tournament ends because the commander gets sniped by 10 grunts, well, that would be partially appropriate and also incredibly disappointing. So don't you dare lose that commander, Teddy. He is really putting himself out there. Slowly cleaning things up. Vehicle plant is done. He's queued up a constructor and a whole bunch of brutes. Both sides going for the vehicle plant at almost identical timings here. Looks like Sheep actually got his, well, no, about the same timing. I don't think he invested in any vehicle constructors quite yet, as he already has a whole bunch of bot constructors. Well, Teddy, with 3 of his own constructors on the right flank. If he can snipe some of these vehicle constructors, that could set the tank count back dramatically, but I don't think there's enough here to deal with it. And also this camera angle, while cool, I don't know. Meanwhile, oh no, Teddy, he's trying to reclaim before he dies, just trying to get as much as he can, which is the best he can do, as Sheep essentially jumps a bunch of his units up there. Is the bomb lab gonna be reclaimed? He's building another one on the front lines. Teddy really tried to press the issue. Oh, Sheep loses a few more grunts. 1 turret barely holds and stops the bleeding for now, as Teddy now working his way along the left side. Finds it all the way down to nearly the bottom of the map here. And that is going to clear out and overwhelm a bunch of the turrets and many of the grunts. Tanks moving up to defend. Quite a choke point, but the bots can just walk right over the hills here. So, not something that is necessarily helpful to the tanks, as they can just look down and shoot them. Though, the tanks can fire up and at least try to hit the grunts. Meanwhile, wait, what are those? Ah, yes, Lasher missile trucks, which do outrange the turrets, though quite expensive. Have to be very careful not to get overwhelmed by drunks or grunts, really. Either is bad, but the ones with laser weapons are usually more dangerous. Not mutually exclusive. Missile trucks backing off. Brute tanks, quite a solid counter if they can close the distance. Most things are, really, though. Teddy has maintained a I'm not going to say a solid hold, but a grasp on the center of the map. And it has slowed Sheep down overall, but speaking of overall, 1.1k energy to just 660 for Teddy. So Sheep, with his constant and unashamed investment in wind turbines, is consistently grabbing more energy off the field. Center of the map continues to be an exchange of very heated ideas. Both players rallying vehicles in. The small counterattack to the right. Bottom right here. A few tanks. I don't know if that's enough to take out these turrets. It may be enough to just snipe off the metal extractors, though. It looks like it. Oh, this is awkward. constructor desperate to put that turret together, but it's just not going to happen. Grunt counterattack top left side. Center continues. Yes, that is where the middle of the map is. Though the lines are shifting somewhat as Sheep has broken through the right and slipped through on the left. Teddy has been able to reclaim most of the middle of the map and get that medal, or at least res. But now Sheep is extending the battle lines quite significantly. And that might make it easier for him to use his superior income in order to control the map, especially with res bombs. But unfortunately, still plenty of vehicles to cut off the reinforcements. And that means Sheep is going to be somewhat stranded on the top right side as the reinforcements come in from Teddy, and the tank count will dwindle. Of course, the damage he can do before he's taken out is quite significant. Neither player able to pin down a battle line here, as those tanks just running right by each other. Still, several tanks on the back line. There is a bit of AoE damage, I think, on those tank shots. If the tanks are literally jammed up next to each other, it becomes more apparent. Better against some of the grunt swarms. Sheep now trying to connect with those tanks. Hey, Teddy just collapses on him. Teddy just... Okay, you got him, Teddy. Sending a dozen grunts up to the north. MightySheep continuing to grab that map control back. He doesn't have... Well, neither player is even close to tier 2, I don't think. Yeah, there's a lot of metal on the map, but they're putting it all into units here, because if they ever stop that stream of reinforcements, very clearly, the other player will take the ground immediately. Meanwhile, the battle on the left side. One construction vehicle found itself on the wrong side of things. The grunts will hunt it down. Just trying to re-grab all these metal extractors is the hardest part. The trickle-down metal from the wrecks on the field is much of it right now. A few more grunts make it by, but Teddy has consolidated his forces and is looking to punch through the right flank. And right now, there's just not that many tanks to match him. Some more moving up. Reinforcements coming in for MightySheep at the moment. Does he have enough? Teddy may be able to break through. The grunts all stacked up here. Forced to split a bit. But that's like 5, 6, 7 tanks against the trickle out of the factory. Where's the commander? A D-gun may be required. Those wind turbines vulnerable as well. The mexes themselves. He's going very deep. Gets a construction turret. One of the most fragile buildings. And they're all very fragile. The wind turbines, though. It looks like, despite all that counterattack damage, Teddy may have enough to just break through and win the game right out. Or at least stop the production to the extent where it becomes inevitable. Well, I think that answers that question. Teddy with an efficient 127%. Wow. Quite an efficient tank battle there. It looked like he was losing ground, but I think at some point he just had the better army. And there wasn't enough to slow him down. A bit of a slugfest. Well, it's 2-2. We're all tied up. What would you ask? You couldn't have scripted this better. As we go in to Pawn Retreat, will be Game 5. We will crown a new commander. Well, literally, quite literally, we crown them, apparently, which is kind of great. Apparently. You get a crown on your commander as part of this skin. Well, we're going to Pawn Retreat, which is a bit of an ironic statement, because on most land maps, pawns have retreated entirely, as almost everyone plays Cortex. So, appropriately named for this final match, assuming we once again have the Cortex battle. And I think it's happening. We don't. We don't. Okay. Find me my dramatic. I want dramatic music. No. Jimmy, we were supposed to pick this out beforehand. Do I have to wait a moment? Oh, here we are. Yes, okay. Welcome back to the grand finals of the Beyond All Reason 1v1 championships. These two commanders have fought to a standstill, but they'll do anything but stand still in Game 5, the decider of the grand finals. Let me introduce to you once again, from Thailand, it is Teddy, with the Armada Commander in the blue. And in the top left, opting for Cortex. For one of the first times, we see a split between the two. Two different factions. The British player, MightySheep, also choosing a different starting position. But, to reintroduce you, this is Beyond All Reason, the spiritual and legally distinct successor to Total Annihilation. Very similar in inspiration and origins to Supreme Commander and another game called 0K, but is open source and open to play. And if you check out by liking and subscribing the description, if you use my promo code, you can follow the link, and the first 100 people will be able to download Beyond All Reason for absolutely free. Now, everyone past that will also be able to download it for absolutely free, but they're not going to be as special. So, and for legal and slightly confusing reasons, or potentially confusing there is no promo code. That was that was a bit. Okay, Jimmy says I have to say that because people get confused sometimes, and I say then they shouldn't play strategy games. They should just make dumb comments on YouTube. And then Jimmy says I shouldn't say that because I'm alienating most of my demographic, to which I agree. So I will stop that and start describing Beyond All Reason, which is a hunter-gatherer survival simulator. You hunt enemy units and commanders. You gather metal and energy from metal extractors, and from solar panels, wind turbines, and from trees. And also, one of the most efficient ways to hunt is to destroy your enemy units and gather from them with the reclaim function, which is one of the coolest parts of the game, one of the most relevant in deciding especially these 1 versus 1 battles. But starting off, Cortex is the choice for MightySheep. Cortex has access to grunts, which are they have longer range than the tier 1 bot infantry of Armada. In general, very, very roughly, the factions are very equivalent. They have access to very similar buildings, similar costs, similar units. The biggest splits are a little later on in higher tech units, but they all have units for both ground, air, whatever roles. But very generally, Armada is a little faster, higher DPS, less HP. Cortex, more range, HP, damage, but not quite as maneuverable. And that is, I would compare them, the difference is a little more like the difference between Age of Empires civilizations as opposed to StarCraft races. In fact, it's more like playing the Rainer versus the Swan co-op commander. Is probably the most accurate comparison. But in 1v1, we already see metal extractors being taken. We haven't looked much at Teddy's base, but Teddy has chosen to go for the vehicle plant. which gives you access, obviously, to vehicles, whereas the bot lab for MightySheep. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing all the Tier 1 tech. As much like in StarCraft 2 and mirror matchups, you can't tech up too fast. Otherwise, you leave yourself open to just outright getting attacked and dying. You simply don't have the resources to go to Tier 2. You don't have nearly enough metal. So. And another key point is the simply the space on the map. Where this map is oftentimes used for like 4v4 or larger team games. It was the choice of MightySheep after losing the previous game to tie up the series to Teddy. So a lot of space, and he chose his starting position from a variety in the back corner, which indicates he wants as much space as possible to try to outmaneuver and out-macro his opponent. So far, I would say Teddy is a bit more focused on the tactics, finding the right unit or the right timing, whereas Sheep wants to survive until he gets overwhelming army that just hits too many places to be stopped. Now, that is once again much like the faction breakdown, the very oversimplified, but here we are. And we've had the early game exchanges. Both sides are going to be sending out units, whether it's grunts or, in this case, blitzes, the tanks for Armada, in order to try to limit some of the more greedy metal extractors, which those early constructors are making their way out. We're going to go to the sheep cam for a moment, the mightiest of sheeps, and take a look what he's focusing on. You might wonder, are the players also looking at these tiny, looking from all the way out here? Yep, you can zoom out to see the entire map, and you probably should, otherwise you might miss something. And especially on a map of this magnitude. Advanced solar collectors being added on. Reclaiming some of the trees with those reclaim bots as well. Another advantage of going for bots early. In fact, Sheep, we got to turn this off. Sheep managed to get some grunts all the way into Teddy's base. I gotta remind you at this point, the way to win is to destroy your opponent's commander. That's it. That's the entire objective. If for some reason that commander's in the wrong spot at the wrong time, the game ends. There's no trying to kill every single one of those last buildings. There's no hunting down in the corner. I mean, unless that's where they put their commander. Very simply, if the commander dies, there's no one left. So, we'll see how long that takes. Oh, the commander has many means of defending themselves. Strong words. And a disintegration gun that one-shots every unit in the game if it hits it, including juggernauts. Which are pretty much exactly what they sound like. Which he unleashed there in order to kill some of those tanks that strayed a little too close. A single, Grunticus, the first, maybe not the last, has already leveled up. You see the little stars. Units gain veterancy, essentially, on doing damage, which usually just adds a marginal amount of HP, maybe a slight attack rate increase. It's not like they get big abilities or anything, but and can help you maybe survive and take a better fight later on. Though, grunts are not the most long-term unit, believe it or not. Yes. Thank you, observers, for explaining to us how shapes work. Poorly. This is my response. The grunt, oh my god. 5 going on 6 metal extractors in the sand pit. Clearly Teddy hates sand. Tanks, not great in sand. It's coarse. It's irritating. You have to go down a ramp, up a ramp, slows down your vehicles. Unfortunately for him, about half the map is sand. Or at least a bunch of the key points. the center sand trap here. Mostly passable by ground, but not something you necessarily want to get stuck in. Now, a big part of why the grunts can be so dangerous, even to vehicles, is flanking damage. When a unit gets hit, what is that noise? Oh, that's the sound of a metal extractor finishing. I'm just not used to hearing that sound effect so much. Oh my god. Because usually you're not getting like 20 metal extractors. As everything has a sound effect, and a lot of the attack sounds and buildings are distinct as well. I have different sorts of attack profiles, and whether they can hit or they have damage drop-off, like lasers at range. Here we go. Two armies kind of not even realizing they were near each other until they start firing. Most units can attack while moving, though not all can attack in all directions. Especially like artillery tanks must be facing the correct direction. Anyways, flanking damage. When you get hit from one side, you become vulnerable to a flank on the opposite side, which is what these ticks are trying to activate. But that means you take up to double damage depending on the angle from the opposite side. And that allows you to really drive the point home with superior numbers and/or superior position. But here we are. Lines drawn in the sand. As so far, neither player has been able to take a distinct advantage in the early game. Overall, MightySheep has significantly more energy. Yes. Oh my god, is this the same grunt? He's trying to shoot at the radar, but there's a slight incline, which he's now realizing, of this wreck being in the way. Which can technically be destroyed, but takes a while, as we see there. Terrain very much matters, whether it's for accuracy, damage drop-off, or just literally getting in the way. But here we go. Shurikens in the center of the map. The Cortex Flyer. EMP to stun some of the units. Very temporarily, but very temporarily is enough for him to close the distance and potentially shut things down here. Yeah, just a few shurikens when there's very little anti-air can turn the tide of a close battle. Well, the blitzes are trying to make their way through. The grunts backing off. A lot of the Cortex tanks being run down by the close-range DP. They essentially strap a submachine gun on top of them, as do many Armada-style things. All about getting in range to get the damage done and moving past it. They're called blitzes, all right? And that's exactly what they've done here. The shurikens, not enough to stop them. Small tank run by, drive by. Meanwhile, the lines are getting pretty blurred as Teddy takes the center of the map, but both players are working around the edges. Again, another attack is making its way down into the back sand pit. Gonna take out some of those metal extractors, but at the same time, Teddy might be able to do the same to MightySheep on the back line. A whole bunch of metal. Is he reclaiming? He's actually resurrecting the tanks, which only costs energy, so you save yourself the energy cost of making a new tank or grunt or whatever. You can resurrect. In fact, many times I've seen... Now, an interesting interaction, which is hard for me to slip in the commentary, is because they're different factions, if one of them resurrects a construction bot or a constructor of some kind, they can build the units. They can build a production facility and potentially build units of another faction. This is much more relevant in team games with players sharing units and being different factions, but it is a possibility here. And of course, you can resurrect units of the enemy faction and have them fight for you, but that's less dramatic than being able to build them yourself. Alright, so Sheep has some Rezbots behind. I feel like I need to just go to this mode. much of the northern flank has been cleared out, but at the same time, Sheep has dealt with the right side of the map is a no man's land at this point. The grunts and light tanks making their way by. Some of the turrets no match for this many tanks, at least unless the shurikens get involved. Fighter aircraft coming in to wipe the shurikens out of the sky. Technically, the turrets will fire at them. They're just not great at it. Shurikens stalling out the ticks that are trying to help reinforce this counterattack. I think it only takes one shuriken hit. The tick's the smallest or the cheapest combat unit in the game. Often spammed. Oh my god, Grunticus Maximus. I've never seen this rank on a unit. He's got plus 65%. I think that's like rank 6 or so. Oh, anyways. He's got a star! Gotta go res that one. I think you keep your experience, I'm not sure. Anyways, another battle. On the sand trap. Meanwhile, the tank battles overall seem to be won by Teddy. The fighters are still over the top. A lot of metal being reclaimed. Still a handful of light tanks on the backline. The incisors here from MightySheep have been slowing it down. Teddy, with all the metal he's getting from the field, is gaining a lot. It's hard to tell. Metal produced. Wow, Sheep is at 7,000 more. And how much energy? I did not realize how much more control he had over the situation. He may even be going to tier 2 right now. That 2,900 metal investment is a huge step up. I'd compare it to going like from Hatch Tech to Hive, or building like 3 or 4 more command centers and barracks before anything else. But it gives you access to the advanced construction bots, which can build dramatic defenses, but more importantly, advanced metal extractors, which are 4 times as strong, and your greatest source of income until you get exponentially scaling fusion energy. So, a huge boost in the mid-game, even in 1v1, where it's so hard. Well, maybe especially in 1v1, where it's so hard to keep anything alive. Speaking of, it does, when you go for tier 2, unless you're already winning incredibly hard, it's inevitable you'll lose some unit production. And Teddy, I think, has taken advantage of that. Teddy has now got tier 2 himself, and he's claimed much of the center of the map and has rebuilt over to the bottom right corner. Overall, Sheep is a little more tucked in. His base is consolidated back here. He hasn't started any, will he get a transport vehicle for his, or an air transport for his, because obviously the construction bot is not the quickest creature. Sometimes players will use air transports to move them around a little quicker, though slightly risky. Tank line drawn. Looks like Sheep might punch through. Isolated some of the units. Still a whole bunch of wrecks on the field, not enough to bottle things up yet. The ticks. There were shurikens up here, but shurikens don't actually kill anything. They just hold it there until hopefully somebody comes by and helps. Well, there should be enough blitzes here. A bit of an optimistic battle out of Sheep, but he's regained much of the high ground. Overall, well, Sheep has a significant lead, and we may actually see a fusion reactor moment. I'm starting to learn this game, I think. As he's now got over 1,000 energy with all these advanced solars. He's got a whole bunch of advanced metal extractors. He's claiming a lot of these wrecks. And with that sort of income, the next way to scale is, instead of harnessing the wind or the sun, just create a little bit of your own. The fusion reactor, incredibly expensive, but produces 1,000 energy. So essentially, about as much energy as everything else on the screen. All but maybe a few of the advanced solar collectors combined. Okay, more like that much of this. Still, it's very good. It's not the most efficient necessarily, though the wind speed is not high enough for the wind turbines. It's very good, and he has a lot of metal. It is how you get essentially to a late game economy, because you can only build, there's only so much space for wind turbines or solar panels. It literally becomes a real estate issue. A real estate you can protect issue. There's a lot of map, but as we've seen, keeping a strong hold on it. And if you lose the fusion reactor, well, it's not good for anything around it. Let's put it that way. Sheep is setting up minefields. Whoa, the commander! Okay, well, he's got the deacon. He's paying attention. What an anti-comet again that could be. The mines, it looks like they obliterated most of the Jaguar tanks trying to make their way through. Of course, the mines don't recharge to fire again. That once they're gone, they're gone. Wouldn't it be silly if in an RTS a mine just automatically recharged? Like, especially something like this you could just lay down pretty cheaply. That'd be ridiculous. I don't know who he's talking to. That's the spectators, I guess. But an advanced geothermal plant from Teddy, which is the most efficient possible power, plus 1250, so even more than the fusion reactor for a fraction of the cost. The only downside is, if it explodes, it's bad for everything in the entire zip code. But of course, Teddy, it's kind of on its own. It's not right next to his base, so it should be okay for now. Well, things have slowed down a bit as both sides have reached the economic level that, well, they're both able to put enough on the field to both scout and defend run-bys. Though overall, well, MightySheep has done, he's gotten a lot more of his advanced metal extractors up. Which means his metal income is outstripping that of Teddy at the moment. Despite Teddy probably having a few more metal extractors overall, but the advanced ones are clearly... Yeah, this is +8 compared to +2. 8, and now this is true, is more than 2. Now, the mines can be cleared up with detectors, I believe, by just running over them with plenty of units, or with a Juno missile launcher, which is probably the most common way of doing it, and I wouldn't be surprised to see, which creates Juno missiles, which can disable radar and radar jammers, which are much more relevant in, well, I have seen very rare Junos in 1v1, but this game is already the highest economy I've seen of the entire tournament. We actually, I dare not whisper it, we may have a chance at seeing a Juggernaut or a Titan, Tier 3, or a Thor. It's on the table as we are barreling towards the exponential economy scaling. Ooh. Did he see it? I mean, is there anything to see? Or nukes? I mean, he saw the reactors. He knows. He's building some of his own, I'm sure. There's the Armada reactor. Ah! Well, we can see the reaction here. Citadel anti-nuke interceptor. If a nuke is launched anywhere within quite a wide range of this thing, well then, it will fire an interceptor missile to deal with it. quite reliable and much cheaper than the nukes themselves. But if it's taken out or the nuke is fired at a different part of the map, well, he didn't see the whole base, though. He just saw a fusion reactor, and he knows that MightySheep has been turtling up. So, he clearly is anticipating some dramatic plays. And honestly, anti-nuke is pretty cheap. Especially, better safe than sorry. Well, some bull tanks. Probably the Armada's strongest tier 2 tank here. Pretty quick for what it is. Very tanky. Really embodies the whole tank feel. Honestly, the most directly obvious unit in the game. At least on the field right now. Those are clearly tanks. They work like tanks, as you can see. Now the minefield. The minefield, I think, was cleared up. Oop, he gets hit by one. The bull tanks are just running through the field. Beams are trying to match them. But these, they're just pounding through. Their counter to the mines is running them over and just eating the damage. He's clearing paths in the minefield. Surprisingly effectively. Now he's got to be careful he doesn't end up getting his own tanks turned against him too dramatically. It's happening! Experimental gantry! Doesn't really have a nice ring to it, does it? The Super Tech Plant, which builds your tier 3 units here, which aren't necessarily stronger than tier 2 units, but I mean, some of them definitely are. But he's building the Shiva Siege Mech, which has a long-range launcher and is generally a good, like, upgraded midline unit. I don't have too much experience with anything but the biggest guns, but of course, also here is the exponential scaling has begun. The Juggernaut and the Behemoth are options as well. Is that an advanced armed metal extractor? The bull tanks are trying to blast their way through, but the shurikens are locking them down. They might end up being reclaimed while still alive. Meanwhile, the fiends are trying to sneak along the right side. They cleared up some of these metal extractors. It looks like they will eventually be dealt with by the Jaguars. A fighter screen. I don't know how many fighters are we looking at? That's not the right. Well, that's also not right. A lot of fighters. Wait, I know the button. 80. And I think he's continually adding them. Oh, and the bull tanks now. At some point, Juno missile comes in. But at this point, he's just handing him Armada tanks. As the tanks rallied across, stunned, taken out, and then resurrected to fight for the Cortex. So overall, Teddy... Wait, what do you got here, Teddy? He's got 2 Juno launchers. He's now building... What is that? Oh, wow, the Starlights. The long-range mobile turret. You'll know it when you see it. One of the cooler units in the game. It definitely has the sci-fi feel to it. Juno launcher. Clearing out that minefield and disabling any radar nearby. He's still trying to hold on to it. The Jaguar tanks dealing with the battery here. But the Bulls are leading the charge, appropriately enough. Back against their former creators. the Shivas are just railing across the map as well out of the gantry. As the final game of the finals, becoming by far the most dramatic. Atomic bomber, but the fighters close in like wasps. Wait, are they called wasps? No, I don't think so. Valiants. All right, not nearly as cool. Actually, I think there are some more aircraft that are named along those lines, actually. But Shuriken Hercules, that's not really the Finch. Oh, there's the Starlight. I don't know if there's enough frontline to deal with this, though. It does cost energy for every shot. Both sides have a huge amount of energy to draw on, but they're starting to really use it, both in unit production and in some of their weaponry. Oh, the pulsar cannon. The ultimate in conventional defense. The longest range tier 2 defense on that left flank. Should be able to shut down all but the most concerted attacks. The Starlight getting kind of stuck in the middle of the field here. The Shiva rocket's landing. It could move out of him. Losing it pretty quickly. Adding in some of the crab walkers. I mean Karganaths. Which don't care about your silly ground paths because, well, I think that demonstrated better than I could ever describe it. Anyways. More Starlights at the front, but there's not that much tankiness here. There's not that much to mask with them. They're gonna have to be target fired because a whole lot of tier 1 units essentially drawing fire from some of these heavier weapons. Drawing those shots out. The grunts and oh, atomic bomber comes in. Where are the fighters? Many of them got taken out. Some flak is being added on as well. The fighters trying to hunt down the atomic bomber, but it's already gone. Shiva's clearing out the front, but over on the right side, a couple gunships will draw the attention of many of the fighters. That might open up another opportunity for the atomic bomber to move in. Bull tanks on top of the Shivas. They don't like the intimate relationship they're having right now, but they will die together. How romantic. Bulls coming in again. The field now strewn with wreckage. I don't know if there's anyone rezzing or reclaiming. Not too many units out here, but all of them are expensive. Besides the ones that clearly aren't, but mostly expensive. Looks like the pulsar is still intact, but it didn't help enough to stop some of these Shivas. As MightySheep continues to punch forward. The Shiva rockets landing on the Starlights. So far, a clear advantage for Teddy. As he moves forward, and back at home, he is scaling quite dramatically. He has the base in his sights. I don't know where the commander is. But the Shivas are now marching up. The Bulls on the high ground. Gonna try to be a last line of defense before most of the economy, and especially the production. You can see the reactors on the horizon. Meanwhile, he's just queuing up advanced fusion reactors, 3,000 energy apiece. The hardest building, or the most complicated and long-winded building in the game. The most expensive thing is the Juggernaut unit, arguably, but the advanced fusion reactors, the fact he's queuing them up tells you how much his economy is scaled. Teddy, on the other hand, has not built any advanced fusion reactors. It's not the end of the world yet. It really comes down to production capabilities. But at some point, the sheer economic scaling. So the way you convert is advanced energy converters. It converts all the energy past this gray bar into metal if you have enough energy converters. So that's it. You gain more energy, you gain more metal past the amount of metal you're able to grab from the map. It's not efficient compared to getting more metal extractors, but at some point, you've got all the metal extractors. And that is how the exponential scaling works. You use that metal to build more advanced fusion reactors to get more energy to convert into more metal to build more advanced fusion reactors to build even more units to completely obliterate and embarrass your opponent in the grand finals of the Beyond All Reason 1v1 tournament. And that's the whole build. But it's not over yet. Teddy Still has quite an armored force here, though it does seem like much ground has been gained back by MightySheep. A handful of turrets are not going to be enough to stop the swarm of Shivas and Karganeths. The Starlights and Bulls are starting to hold the line with some welder bots. The lightning tanks here. Well, they're not tanks, but they're essentially a frontline brawler that deals with the swarms of units a lot better with the chain lightning. And the counter-strike. That Pulsar struggling for energy to fire. Some of the Karganeths working along the left side. The right flank has been mostly cleared up, but a direct attack down the center. Oh god, they're on the mountain. The Starlights, of course, can hit them with that laser cannon, or tachyon, whatever. The big shooty laser. Hard to miss. Believe it or not, Karganeths do not move faster than light. Oh, he's that's one way to get tier 3 units. Not the most efficient, but he is resurrecting some of the tier 3 from his opponent. Still struggling to deal with the Shivas on the right flank. A swarm of grunts is added in as well. The Bulls trying to clear up the center of the field. Missiles landing. Constructors knocked out of the sky. Some of the tier 1 spam drawing the shots as the Shivas work their way forward. More Junos. Here come the grunts, drawing the armor line in the center of the field. Is there enough to stop MightySheep as he marches across? On the back line, some of the Karganeths have turned their coat. The Shivas moving over to the right. Blasting their way through. There's not enough defense. Unloading the rockets onto the Bulls. It does look like just enough to hold the line. The welders mixed in helped out a lot with the spam. Over. It's not looking as good. Over on the right side here. But the Pulsar maybe could have been a little better positioned. Right now, constantly getting poked and prodded along both flanks is Teddy. But holding strong in the center. He's now down almost double energy and nearly double metal production as that scaling is kicking in. So many advanced fusion reactors and a summoning circle of constructors here. He is using, so air constructors don't have collision. So he's adding their... It's happening! A juggernaut is in production. I'm not gonna spoil it. It's called a juggernaut. Which has stalled out the production of all other units since it costs as much as like 20 of them combined. But in many cases, it might be well worth it. The sheer amount of units on the field. MightySheep is almost halfway to the unit cap of 2,000. He's at 948. His opponent is at only 340. It doesn't matter what those units are. I think that tells the story right now. The swarms of grunts matched by the Jaguars, the gunships. There's just so many units. The armor getting beaten down on the field. The flanking damage kicking in. He's trying to use some of the air, but the fighters swarm over, and while they might get taken out themselves, they cleared out the gunships for now. Some of the grunts moving back. The Juggernaut is at 60%. Teddy. Does he even have one advantage? He's just building regular fusions. Regular old normie fusions, not deluxe premium advanced fusions. As he's struggling. Meanwhile, MightySheep is going to be up to 20,000 energy. More energy than the rest of the games in this series combined at once. per second. So far, Teddy has been more efficient, but MightySheep has gained 100,000 more metal and almost double the energy now. Another armored sweep. The tank's blasting through the grunts. The Shiva's standing up to a little more punishment. It looks like the attack on the right flank has been mostly slowed down. The ticks are trying to draw fire, just distracting the shots and overwhelming the defenses of the pulsar on the left flank. Some rattlesnakes, tier 3, finally online, but the experimental gantry for the Armada. The rattlesnake's quite a good choice against many of these medium units. A rapid rate of fire, pretty decent speed, will help to clear out all these ticks without costing us a ridiculous amount in static defense. But he's here! The Juggernaut. $149,000 HP. More weapons than I care to read off right now. The speed, marginally faster than a turret. And while Teddy might feel like he's pushed back, he's gonna feel something else. Let's go to the Teddy. Oh, Atomic Bomber just wiped out a whole bunch of production, though. The Juggernaut is here, but it is just one unit. Atomic bombers wipe out a bunch of the factory construction turrets and the factories themselves. Instead of spending the... He's building a second... Oh my god, says Teddy. But in spectator chat, or in allies chat, which is for spectators. This essentially never happens in an actual game. Rarely does a game get to the point where it still could go potentially either way and a Juggernaut hits the field, which will likely turn the tide. But if he loses it, it can be resurrected for the opposite side, which we've seen plenty of. So, Teddy. 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 Do you have what it takes? The Juggernaut joined by a bunch of units who are trying to get in its way. Teddy trying to put whatever he can on the lines while also working on the right flank. He may be able to punch through there. They're just lines of anti-air turrets. You don't have to see the Juggernaut to know it's on the field. Let's go to the Teddy cam. He doesn't see it, but that laser, that's the only unit that has that sound in the game. You learn very quickly what it means. It means the game has changed, and probably not in a good way. Ooh. Well, the attack actually breaks through the right. There wasn't much there. You could tell the lines of units headed over. MightySheep has a lot less units ever since he lost his factory production here. He's rebuilding some of it. The Juggernaut is actually marching slowly. The rattlesnakes may be able to surround. The Juggernaut is clearly vulnerable to flank damage. It can be surrounded. It can be killed. It can be beaten. And remember, if he finds the commander. Also, almost every single unit in the game can outrun it, so... Teddy is throwing everything every which way. Over to the top right. The rattlesnakes are punching through the center. The Juggernaut trying to chase them. The attack is petering out here. Though still enough tanks. The rattlesnakes breaking through. The left flank is holding. But a counter strike. The rattlesnakes, where's the commander? The Rattlesnake's fully capable of taking down a commander. The Juggernaut actually holding. Does he have another one? No, he's building just Shivas for now. Those aren't Rattlesnakes, those are Razorbacks. I'm sure somebody was yelling at me in chat. Honestly, Rattlesnake would fit them better. They have like a rattly noise to them. All right, I don't, is Rattlesnake another unit? Either way, Rattlesnake would have fit just fine. It's a fitting name. Oh, where is Teddy's commander? Okay. Building it. Well, I don't know, Teddy. I don't know about this idea. Building his, what might very well be his first advanced fusion with essentially no defenses in the corner. The Juggernaut came back. A whole bunch of Wasp gunships here. But the Juggernaut has dealt with the counter. Mighty Sheep now has a 20,000 energy advantage. The ticks overrunning the field. We're gonna go to Teddy's view. Not his camera, but... Where is he? You can actually hear him if you listen. He doesn't know exactly. There, the Shivas. He's adding more Annihilators. A whole lot of units coming up. But nothing he can't deal with. A few grunts. A lot of Shivas. Get you a little more dramatic. Able to target some of them with radar profiles. But so far, the Shivas have been driven back. So far, Teddy will hold. A Juno lands. He's building atomic bombers. There's still a big question mark on the field. I'm not sure. The atomic bombers are headed over, looking for something. They see the Juggernaut, but the bombers are hitting the Shivas. The Juggernaut actually doesn't have incredible anti-air, so the laser obviously does great damage to whatever it hits, but it isn't an anti-air platform. Then again, everything else and all those fighter aircraft are pretty good at their jobs. So, Mighty Sheep now has double the income, almost triple the energy. The Juggernaut still marching. He's rebuilt a lot of that Tier 1 production. Mighty Sheep fired a nuke. It was intercepted. He tried a shot. So there was anti-nuke over there. Thankfully. The Juggernaut has finally touched grass. And Teddy's not going to be hyped about it. The Juggernaut has it in its sights. A lot of the economy. A lot of the reactors. Any remaining production. One of the reactors may go up. The bombers, EMP! Desperate. EMP bombers will slow things down. The Razorbacks doing what they can. Juggernaut targeting some of the buildings, some of the infrastructure. EMP bombers, desperate. But the Juggernaut will not be stopped. I don't think it's vulnerable to EMP, and even if it is, it takes far too much. The Shivas may be taken down. There might not be an opportunity for a massive chain reaction. But even when it dies, the Juggernaut is a threat. It unleashes something. Oh, it's self-destructing! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1! Oh, no! And with it, Oh! The self-destruct was significantly more than the outright damage. And if it self-destructs, it leaves nothing to resurrect. You cannot revive it. All that's left is the crater. And with it, oh, he took the anti-nuke out. At least for, oh, he didn't actually, but that wasn't in range. Nuke's landing. A desperate counterattack. The left flank is holding, but for how long? It seems all but inevitable in this, by far, the most dramatic high-economy game of Beyond All Reason. Another Juggernaut. And another Juggernaut. He's building two at a time. MightySheep is at 50,000 energy. Nearly 1,000 metal a second. He can build a Juggernaut every 30 seconds at that rate. Assuming he has the production capability, which I'm going to go ahead and give him credit for. I will say, it wasn't over, I think, until that Juggernaut touched grass. Until that Juggernaut reached this side of the map, mostly uncontested. I think Teddy still had a dream. But I think once it had made it that far, intact, the dream died. And so did Teddy. Yes, he's still here, the commander on his hill. But while he might not have vision of it, we can see across the map yet another Juggernaut in production. Added to the list. Yeah, MightySheep will be earning his crown. This is the original soundtrack, I might add. Which... the Razorbacks try to strike back. We'll deal with the Shivas for now. It might be. I don't blame Teddy. He knows at this point, I'm sure. But come on, you never get a game like this. Even in team games, sometimes you don't get this far. Even in 8 versus 8, you'd be hard-pressed to see this level of economy. This game is epic, says Teddy, acting like a Bronze League hero, but well-deserved. Commenting on how sick the game is. I'll let him have that one. I approve. My god. Sheep lagging the game by just queuing up move commands. Multiple Juggernauts on the field. Give us the nukes! He's got one banked up. There's still the dream of sniping the commander, but he hasn't made any real attempts at it. Oh, will it be the relatively lowly Shivas who actually sneak up on Teddy here? Over in the corner. Multiple Juggernauts in the center of the map. The Razorbacks try to close in. Juggernaut's lighting them up with that massive laser. Oh, Teddy. Teddy cloaked. MightySheep has 69,000 energy. Teddy, per second, that is. Oh no. Oh no! Teddy, fire the gun! Teddy, fire! He holds for now. Oh god. Oh, no, 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 no! No! Oh, okay, well... The missile that was coming out as he degunned it actually cancels the advanced fusion reactor, but until it's finished, it isn't a massive explosive threat. Here comes the entire neighborhood. And then some. There's 4 or 5 juggernauts on the field. MightySheep, I don't even want to know. Did he stop building? Oh, he could have stopped at 69,000 energy, but no, more! He's got 5-6 Juno launchers, his base looking... This is the reason this game sometimes gets auto-flagged by YouTube as Factorio, by the way. Because you guys gotta get to the devs. Gotta get YouTube to recognize it at least. I know Twitch does, but I don't know if there's a process for you to... Anyway. The amount of... Also, that's not even all of his advanced fusion reactors. There's a bunch more over here. All those construction turrets. I hear he's got a volley of plasma cannons, which I don't think I've ever seen in 1v1 either. Oh, but the grunts. The grunts. The grunts are the ones who might do it. Almost accidentally taking it out. But at the end of the day, it's still... Sheep is perma-cloaked, which costs 100 energy when standing still. A small price to pay for safety. There is still the tiny, infinitesimal dream that somehow a unit slips by, past half a dozen juggernauts, past an entire mountain of plasma cannons, past infinite grunts and fighter aircraft, that somehow, some way, MightySheep falls on his self-destruct button and accidentally blows up his own commander. There's a dream. G, he calls it. Sheep calls in the bombers. Teddy, with his crown earned in previous tournaments, has it ripped from his head. And with it, MightySheep takes the victory. The self-destruct. He goes down before anyone can take it from him. But time for some statistician level graphs. Your champion of the Beyond All Reason 1v1 tournament is MightySheep in 5 games. The bombers already had a bombing run queued up. You can hear it in the background. And they just keep... Alright, I don't... Jeez. I can't hear myself think. Oh my god, I can... Okay, now I can't hear it. Turn down the TV! I'm trying to talk about the stats. Or I guess you could pause, but... well... How about the statistics? $57 million energy. Wow. Well, even then, still a hard-fought tournament. Earning, well, one, I believe MightySheep gets a crown now. You get a crown on your commander if you win a tournament. With MightySheep, I don't see a crown. He's partying, as well he should, but... that should be changed soon. first-person view of the jug. I don't trust it, but... So, hopefully this was a demonstration. Thank you to the players. I've been past a certain point, clearly just enjoying the spectacle. Because almost no games make it to this auspicious level. But, there you go. Remember to use that promo code of liking and subscribing to check out Beyond All Reason for free. And hopefully you enjoy. Thank you to all the volunteer developers, to the players putting everything on. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I made your day a little bit better. Good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Stay chill. Stay unreasonable. We'll work with it. Well, I don't know about that. That's too much. That's too much. Cut. Edit that out.